Welcome back, everyone. Good evening, good day, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm really excited because right now we have a different format for you. Since this morning, you've heard mainly single person speaking. We are actually now kickstarting the very first panel, and I'm even more excited because it's with a lot of wonderful ladies that are coming from literally all over the world. We have Tania from Cowork in Porto, who is joining us, as well as Carrie Douglas from The Haven in Bend, Oregon. And for Carrie, it's 7 a.m., so really, really early. And we also have Rachael, founder of Coworker Hub in Middlebury, Connecticut. Hi, ladies. Are you around?
Yes, hi. Hi, Pauline. How are you?
Good morning. Hello, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Carrie. I know it's like really, really early for you, so thank you for waking up that early. We've been already having quite a few sessions, and people are starting to hack, so that's quite exciting. Before we enter and deep dive into the topic, I would love for each of you to quickly introduce yourself, maybe, and say a few words about what brought you into coworking.
Sure.
Tanya, you can. Rachael, go for it. You were going.
I'll go first. So, my name is Rachael Kaiser, and I am actually I work in healthcare. I'm a healthcare consultant, and having worked in the industry for a long time, I decided to go off, being a road warrior, so to say, traveling so much. So I was working from home, and after working from home, really. That's my story. I was really overwhelmed with just the isolation. I started trying to go out into different cafes, and you all know, either you go, for example, and I'm not picking on Starbucks, but it was the place I could go. It was either hard to get a seat or hard to get an outlet. So I tried elsewhere, and either the internet wasn't working. I mean, it just wasn't working. So I came to learn about coworking, and then I looked online to find out if there was any in my area. There wasn't. And the short story is, I decided, you know what, if there isn't, there has to be other people with the same need as I. And so I decided to open one and start work. So that's my story.
Great, thank you.
My husband and I call that the coffee shop shuffle. We did it for many years. I'm Carrie, I'm from Bend, Oregon. And similar story, I would just add that I'm an entrepreneur and also a politician. And so in addition to having worked from home for many years and then having toddlers, and nothing about that was working, I also was noticing in every aspect of my life how women and people of color and other underrepresented groups were being left out of politics and left out of entrepreneurship. And so we especially wanted to create a space that was intensely focused on inclusion and welcoming people that don't always have an opportunity to participate in entrepreneurship and small business ownership. So those were the two goals: get out of the house and try to increase representation in entrepreneurship.
Tanya?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tania Santos. I'm from Porto, and my background, my academic background, is psychology. It's nothing to do with what I'm doing now, but 10 years ago, almost, I was surrounding. We were living in a financial crisis, severe financial crisis everywhere, but in Portugal, we felt it hard. And I was surrounded by friends and creatives in a general manner. That was they were struggling to reinvent themselves because they didn't have a job, and they were creating and becoming entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs. At that time, I thought it was a good idea to have a space that combined a workspace for these creatives, for them to share and to go further, and also a store and a gallery, so people could work, could share their work and exhibit their artwork and sell their pieces in the same place, and that was our motivation at the time.
Actually, as we are like in an online world, and I think for some of the viewers it might not be very clear exactly what your co-working space, like each of you look like. I've prepared a few slides with pictures, and I would love for each of you to comment on your space, and maybe while you comment also tell us a bit about who are your members. So I'm gonna share my screen. This one. There we go. So whenever, I think you should see it now, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. So Tanya, can you just tell us a little bit about those pictures?
Yeah, this is me. So this creative hub is located in Porto, in a very specific neighborhood, the arts neighborhood of Porto. So the space, as I said, is designed to be a creative hub, not only a space of work. So you see, these are the I'm pointing it. Did you saw that? So the co-working space actually is designed for having these work cells, so people have a little bit more privacy. Exactly. Thank you, Pauline. So we have these small ateliers, let's say, or tiny studios, in the individual studios, so people have more storage room, because most of them are artists and creatives, and they have a lot of stuff and materials for work. And when you enter the space, you enter through our store that represents around 50 national design brands. In the co-working space, we have place for 42 people in total. And we also have a gallery and also some workspaces that are more designed for silk screen and other production spaces, let's say. So we are a 3 or 4 in 1 space designed for these creative freelancers and solopreneurs, mainly local freelancers and solopreneurs in the creative and cultural industries.
And if I'm not mistaken, if I remember from the first time we met, this used to be a garage, right? Before,
yes, it was. So this is a space that is very common in Porto. That is a super narrow space and very long. And it begins in the street front, and then it ends in the beautiful yard. So it's very narrow and long. And before we occupied this space, it was a flower shop, and before it was a garage. Yes, don't ask me where they put the cars.
And actually, I also remember from the first time we saw each other that you were the first collaborative or co-working space we visited where we saw members leave their toothbrush. And we thought that it's a good sign that there is a great community there.
Yeah. You know what, Pauline? With the COVID, no more brush.
Yeah. So next, maybe I should go backwards. Yeah, here. So Carrie, I believe this is the Haven, right?
Yes, this is the Haven. So we're located in Bend, Oregon, which is kind of a small ski town in the middle of Oregon. We have about 100,000 people. We always appear on the top 5 list of the highest percentage of people working from home in America. So very high percentage of folks who have chosen to live here and work from home. We're an 11,000 square foot co-working space overlooking the river in Bend. It's beautiful. We have lots of natural light. And we have a very different focus. So we have about 350 members, and we sort of specialize in flex memberships. So we do have some private offices and dedicated desks, but we really found that the gap in Bend seemed to be for people who needed a part-time flex space. And so we focused on designing a space that has, these are sort of before and after, so more chairs, less chairs, essentially. But we focused on a space that has a bunch of different areas that feel like different parts of your home. So on the right is called the Refuge. That's meant to feel kind of like a living room. I'm sitting in the library, which is on the left, which is typically a quiet workspace, although I'm in here talking right now, breaking the rules. We have a cafe that feels a little bit more like a restaurant. We have a number of beautiful conference rooms. This one's a little sad for me because at the top, you can see that this was a yoga studio. Beautiful place where our members go to do yoga and Pilates. We had to spread out our dedicated desks. And so we took half of our dedicated desks from our dedicated desk room and moved them into the yoga studio, hopefully for a relatively short amount of time. So you can see some of our dedicated desks spread out there. And we're specifically not industry focused. So our members run the gamut from product creators to people in every industry you can imagine, lots of entrepreneurs and small business owners. Our cafe, they really use like they would use a coffee shop to meet with someone, to have a conversation. And then we have quiet spaces and talking spaces, etc.
Thank you. I would love to go to Oregon. And now that I saw your co-working space, and I advise anyone watching to go on the Haven website because it's really, really well done. And I was browsing through your virtual tour and I thought it was so nice. I was like, okay, it's definitely on my list. I really want to go.
Thank you. You are always welcome. I'm very lucky because I'm a spreadsheet and numbers person. And one of my dear friends was a world-renowned designer and agreed to design it for me. So she took what was in my head and made it real, which was incredible.
She did an incredible job. Rachel, I think this is your space, right?
Yes, this is our space. This is Coworker Hub. And so we also, first of all, our space is about 3,700. So it's not very big compared to many out there. But, you know, it's a space at least that we wanted to start off. We are not in a rural area, but the area we are in is kind of a mix between where, first of all, the state is between Boston and Massachusetts. So, and then you find our town where we are, the corridor. It's also, there's a bit of a gap there. And so we are still educating people about what co-working is. And I mentioned that because the size of it, 3,700 square feet, actually, you know, is a good number. It's not too big, it's not too small. And we are not also industry specific. However, in the next town over next to us, which is Waterbury, we do have two major hospitals. So you find that there are providers, either doctors' offices or therapist offices that have, you know, offices around the general area. So the 10 private offices that we do have, it was coincidental because I know that I'd wanted to see if we could turn it into healthcare, but it so happened that, you know, healthcare providers came and you know, most of them are the ones that occupy our private offices, but not the only ones. Yeah. We've also had some companies that are, you know, wanting, like bigger companies, insurance, for example, that wanted to expand in the area, especially those that were based out of town or state, actually. They've come through and, you know, after they expanded, then they moved on. But here, what we do have at the top, we have, it's one of a multi-use, it's a meeting room, and then also, exactly, and also a space where, you know, we have set up to have the tall desks. As you can see, on the left, we have more seats. On the right, we had to reduce those because of COVID-19 social distancing. And then also in the middle part there, we do have the dedicated desk on the extreme left. And then the equivalent of that is that, you know, we had to, it's not here, but we had to also reduce that. So that pair there is 4, but we had to make it only 2. And then we have a member there, the one where the member is seated is an example where also there are 4 seats, but we only allowed 2. So what we did, because we don't have storage, we put behind every chair that we didn't want anyone being or using a sign that please do not use this seat.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the yellow seats there show exactly what we did. We had to number them. and then have people reserve them in a software management system. The one below that also is, yes, that one. We have meeting chairs. That's where we put most of them. It's our meeting space actually, and we only have currently a few seats there. And the one at the bottom right hand side, that's a good one. I wanted to show it because we also had to use the spaces that we were not utilizing as much. So that was actually a lobby area there. We had a nice setup, rounded, lobby area, and we removed those chairs and put a desk. We had a desk in another office, so we had to make only one desk in the office and bring this desk over. So it was about utilizing space that maybe wasn't as utilized, especially to help us not to have to to do this in a cost-effective way.
Yeah.
The social distancing. Yeah.
I think that's a great inspiration for the viewers, because there was a lot of questions about how you can adapt your space in an easy way, and seeing those pictures, I think, is really, really of great help to everyone. So thank you, Rachel, for showing us this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I would like to ask you, when COVID-19 entered the picture of our realities, what did you have to do? Did your government, local government, ask you to shut down, or could you remain partially open?
Tanya, you want to go first?
Let's go.
We go clockwise.
Well, I think co-working is still a very grayish area for the Portuguese government. It's not even taken in consideration. So the main guidelines that the government released were directed to companies itself or public spaces, commercial spaces. So it was hard for us to find a way of fitting in that guidelines. What we, in the end, we considered was that we must go to our good sense. So we were guided by our good sense. It was not in any law or guidelines from the government that we should shut our spaces. It was not mandatory when you read it, the legislation. Because we were not, so we have the commercial space shutted by the state of emergency, of course. But the co-working space was not the case. But in the end, we closed the space for 2 months since 14th of March, if I'm not mistaken, because simply people were recommended to stay at home, and we have a very responsible community, and people started to stay at home even before the state of emergency declared by the government. So by the 14th, 16th of March, the big majority of our community was already staying at home, so we didn't have any use to the space. So we decided to shut the co-working space, also because we didn't know exactly how to maintain it open during this situation. We need to be very responsible on that also, and have the time to adapt to the new situation. So we closed it for 2 months voluntarily, and we just reopened it at 18th of May. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the situation, but not by any imposition. It was our voluntary decision to shut it. Yeah.
And how was it in US? Was it the same across the entire country, or was it different depending on the regions? I see you laughing, so I'm sure there's a good story there.
Well, yeah. I'm sure if you follow the United States much, you probably noticed that everything is very political here and very divided. And so it has been a state by state and even county by county decision. And unfortunately, it's been very political. And so if you're generalizing, places that are run by Democrats have been much more strict, and places that have run by Republicans have been much more open. it was one of the hardest decisions of our life to decide whether or not to close, because the public pressure here was to close and for everybody to stay home. We ultimately decided to stay open because we're just an office space, we're not an employer, and to allow each individual member to determine how they fell into our governor's orders. We have some essential workers, people doing things like telemedicine, and where we live, internet at home is not always very good. And so we felt like we wanted to stay open for our members who were doing essential work and didn't have the ability to work from home, and for our private office holders, because we felt like they should have access to their individual private offices. But there was a lot of pressure from both sides, and we saw very, very few people for almost 2 months. And then our governor lifted the stay-at-home orders on May 15th. And perhaps surprisingly, we have seen still very few people coming in. So I'm concerned about the short to long-term impact on co-working spaces. We expected to see more people when the governor lifted her stay-at-home orders, but I think because of childcare, primarily, even if folks want to leave home, they can't. And then there's a lot of fear about the virus still. So we've remained open the whole time, obviously decreased our staffing considerably and tried to reduce expenses where we could, but felt like we needed to stay open for those essential workers and emergency situations.
How about you, Rachel?
Yeah, and for us, I have to agree with you, Carrie. Yeah, it was very political, but then I'm also in the eastern part. So Carrie is actually on the West Coast. Talk about coast. West Coast, East Coast. So we were one of the area where it was a hot spot, so to say. We are next to New York, and part of Connecticut, which is called Fairfield County, is an extension actually of New York City. It's considered an extension, literally greater New York City. And that's where the first cases actually were reported, which is the western side of the state. So they ordered, same to us. Some people had started already actually not coming. I didn't know at the time. I don't know. It didn't occur to me that they were going to do the lockdown. But I do remember very well, March 16th, that week is when actually the lockdown literally happened. And same to us, because we went with the rules under an office space. Okay. We also don't have, we're not an employer per se, but went under the rules of office space. So what happened is for our co-working members, most of them actually had started really not coming in. And, at the time I didn't realize, like I said, but the office people who are mostly the therapists, that's when they made the switch. Some had started a little bit before, but that's when they made the switch to telemedicine. And it's been that way. There's only one maybe who has young kids, she can't work from home, and another member, the one who was actually in the picture, who was coming. So what we posted is that we're going to be partially open, and also that our members were free to come in, especially the ones with office. Actually, our members were free to come in as long as they were essential workers. But honestly, we were very lenient, open, because there's some that need to use the space. So one of them, two came in here and there, but the others, didn't. So it was really, and then May the 20th, they announced that it would be reopening. So that was last Thursday. I thought, maybe first day people won't come in. But as far as this week, not many have come in. We've had some therapists that have come back. They're doing their telemedicine actually from their offices. But being surprised too, people are not coming back. And then we realize, I think it may take a little bit more time probably before people feel confident enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, I that's a good for my next question, because I want to talk maybe specifically for you, Tanya. because you had to shut down. I mean, you decided to shut down. So how did you adapt? And even maybe Carrie and Rachel, you also have some stories to share here. But once you couldn't really operate the space as usual, how did you adapt? Did you support your members in any way and kept on creating value or support them somehow?
Yeah, I think it was, as I said, so the store closed immediately when the government said that installed the emergency state, and at the same time we closed voluntarily the co-working space. At that time, we had this like reaction, fast and furious reaction in two different paths, let's say. One of them was very directly to the store and to the creatives that are represented in the store, that are more than 50, and of course they all suddenly lost the major selling points. For that, and because at that time we didn't have an online store, we were working on it but didn't have it. We joined forces with another local organization called Fundamento, with Lisa Lang and her team, and it was like a work of flash work of creating an online store with more than 50 brands in a week. The deadline was 1 week to launch the official online store that was designed, and very well designed, by one of our co-workers also from our community, Mano a Mano Design Studio, and it was incredible. The work of community together made possible that in such a small time we had the online store ready to go and to launch the several creatives, and by that channel we can continue to sell their work. And in another way, for the co-working space, we created a program called Co-working at Home. And in that program, also fast and furious program, we created in 2 days, actually, and we disseminated between our members. So we created a digital symbolic membership, and that would allow them to keep their space as it is in our space, in our co-working space, and also allows them to have access to a bunch of services that we created in a moment. So we digitalized a lot of events. We engaged the community members to create new online events that we didn't have before. And for instance, something that is very important for us are the daily lunches in our yard with our community. A lot of people really come to these moments. So we created a moment, 1 hour per day, a daily online lunch that we like religiously had with our members. So every day of the week we launched it online with our members. And part of that program was also a weekly newsletter that we released with every single information about what supports from the government this specific sector could have, the possibility of open calls of their interest, any kind of contests and grants and whatever, apart from the usual communication that we already do in our day. That was our main reaction, let's say, to adapt to the situation during the period that we were closed.
How about you, Carrie and Rachel? Did you do anything online to keep up with the community, although you were not fully closed?
Yeah, so for me, what I did, first of all, I kid you not, I was overwhelmed. I took a breath. Yeah, I always say take a breath, and I've learned to do that. So so the first 2 weeks, actually, what I did, we was sharing information, what was happening. I'm really subscribed to some different organizations and libraries that have the business angle to it, because I didn't have so much time to go and listen to the news. I was also trying to avoid it. I was getting just the information that I needed that was helpful, the orders where they are. So what I did, I created I was communicating rather that information. I created kind of one depository. It wasn't anywhere that is online, but I created it as just a page, and I put all kinds of different links where people could go and get the information. And then also when they started giving the care here, it's called the CARES Act in the US. I think Carrie, it's the same, right, across, yeah. The CARES Act, which was a program to help businesses, and so all of that information, I put it together and I kept sending it out, every so often. In addition to, in the month of March, I started doing online meditation, because I was just encouraging people, let's take a breath, and really, because many people were overwhelmed, just like myself. But then as time went on, also, I created other things, actually, even beyond our community. I invited our community, and I do know usually our therapists are not as engaging because they have back-to-back patients, and many of them told me during this time they had so many more patients. So I went outside also of our community and I engaged a lot, just really helping to give out information. I started webinars, actually. It's not the path I was anticipating, but I was just trying to do something to help the businesses out there. In our building where we are, we have a restaurant, for example, and I just felt so bad, because there are others that are offices and maybe they were doing their work from home, but the restaurants, the small, retail store, for example, I just took pictures and I was encouraging people, if you can, because now they had curbside ordering and curbside pickup, things like that. But then I started doing things, talks online and events, that is, in April, and then March, I was just doing different things and bringing speakers to speak, but I myself also doing different webinars and sharing. So we are continuing, of course, with communication to our members, and also I'm including more people from the outside. Plus, we also added digital virtual membership. Yeah.
Okay.
And some other memberships to allow, maybe let me just talk a little bit about memberships quickly. We also, because in case it helps anyone, we learned this actually from our space management system. I won't take credit for it, Proximity, which is based in Colorado. And they shared that, if you can also allow, for example, a family, a mother, father, whoever is a member, to add on just one more person. I'm gonna cut it to add just one more person to allow them to get a break. As we know, many parents right now, it's hard with homeschooling and everything like that. So we added, additional memberships that we didn't have, and also at a reasonable cost to allow those people. So far, we've had some sign up for digital, which is a virtual membership, and also the virtual office, but not many with the parents. I think, it's also something that will come up, eventually.
Yeah, very, very similar. So I'll be brief, trying to add some virtual events and value, but it's hard. I mean, honestly, people are mostly members of our space because they want a place to work and a place to gather in community. So it's hard to bring that online. We did some member coffee chats and some member pitches. We've offered a few in-person opportunities to come and use our paddle boards, for example, which is a very naturally socially distancing type activity to feel a little bit in community while still apart. But we mostly have focused on trying to change our policies to adjust to the times. So similar to Rachael, we started something called partner privileges, where you can basically trade off your membership between two parents. So one person can stay home with the kids and the other person can come in and work. We removed all room reservation fees to make it easy for people to spread out. We removed all cancellation fees so that people could book rooms and events without fear of canceling. But the biggest thing we did, which was high risk, but ended up working out, which we basically moved to a pay what you can model during this crisis. So because our mission has always been to make our space inclusive and increase representation in business and entrepreneurship, we wanted to ensure that as people face difficult financial times, that they aren't left out of being able to access our space. So you can read it on our website, but we basically created a little diagram that said, pick what your situation is right now. So all the way from my cup is overflowing and I can pay a little bit more, down to my cup is empty and I can't pay anything, and everything in between. And so we launched that. We were very nervous, but I think it speaks to humanity that we came out about even. A number of people offered to pay more because they could, and a lot of people applied for subsidies. So that's been really cool to see the community come together and support each other in that way.
Just a question on that, Carrie. Are you planning to keep it that way for the time being, or are you right now, because you're reopening, putting back the old memberships?
No, we're gonna stay with it for a while. I mean, I think people are gonna be hurting financially for a long time, and so as long as we can do it, we will keep it that way.
I have one last question before opening it up to the floor and see what the other people watching us right now want to ask. We all know that coronavirus right now, I mean, the conversation that has been going on since this morning with all the speakers and even before the event was that there is this fear in members' heads of, where is the virus? Am I going to catch it? So in big cities where there is public transportation, people don't want to go back to the office because they don't want to take public transport. In many places, they are still afraid because no one, at least in Europe, I don't know how it is in America, but not many people wear masks anymore. Now that they're starting to lift the lockdown a bit everywhere. So all the co-working spaces are wondering, what should I do with my marketing strategy, and what should be my message now to show members that they can trust me and that they can come back, and we took all the safety measures. I know that the three of you've done very interesting things on that note, so I would love for you all to explain a little bit what you've been doing marketing-wise to tell people that you are a safe space.
Well, I can start. Maybe.
Yeah, of course.
It's very interesting because I think since this whole history began, we had these two phases. One is the reaction phase, fast and furious, creating alternatives, creating models that everything can work for us and for our communities. And the other one is like we thought about it, we reflected about it, and created actually a proaction instead of a reaction, and from that proaction is completely different. And I think I see a lot of side effects with this COVID outbreak. A lot of people getting together, helping each other, even in our community of creative hub leaders or co-working leaders. So in our marketing strategy, actually, when we saw this situation coming, in Porto, we decided to talk with other co-working space managers. So we gathered a group of 5, the better co-working spaces that we could find as our partners. And we are 5 co-working spaces in Porto that we started to have weekly meetings to discuss what each of us was planning to do to adapt in their spaces to host their members again. And that was very, very helpful because we all have completely different spaces with different characteristics, and the communities are also very different and act very differently from one to another. But we come to a list of possible adaptation actions that we could do at the space that obviously pass through a very logistic layout of the space, social. I like more the physical distance expression than social distance expression. Yeah. Physical aparting, people aparting from each other. We installed some acrylic divisors, this kind of stuff for, I think we all did more or less the same things, but at the same we had many doubts. And in the end, communication and marketing wise, we decided to gather our efforts and create a line of messages, and we contracted an illustrator to design our main messages. So we picked 8 main messages to speak out to our members and to our communities, and asked for an illustrator to make these beautiful images, positive images of what we are doing. And also this will help us to create a sense of credibility, not only on my space or their space, but a sense of community. So it's like a credibility, a stamp of quality, that spaces spend a lot of time working together in their working and crafting their own solutions to make the safest places to these communities. And we are releasing this campaign next Monday. It will be super good because we are spreading the messages in a positive way, not inviting people to come to our spaces if they don't feel safe, but communicating what we have done to create a social and safe environment. The movement is called Stay Social, Cowork Safe. And if you want, I can share a shared screen for you to see what kind of illustrations in a while. Maybe not now because I want to give my word to Carrie and Rachel. But yeah.
Yeah,
Carrie,
you can also
ahead.
share it later in the Slack as well if you are there.
Yeah. It's not finished. The images are finished. So now we are adapting our message, our individual message. It's in Portuguese, but so you can see the general looking of the space. And that was only one of the examples of community strategy. Even in our neighborhood, because we also belong to this arts neighborhood, we also get together. More than 30 stores, art galleries in different businesses get together, and now we were creating 2 promotional videos about the old neighborhood, reopening their stores and opening their doors to the public, and the result is quite interesting. And we divided the costs of these services. So we get together, we got money that was impossible for each one to have nowadays, this money to invest, and we did it together in the neighborhood scale, in a local city scale. It's very interesting.
Carrie, go ahead.
I don't know. It's hard. We are working on a new marketing campaign right now, trying not to be tone deaf. And it's very hard. I think we've been mostly focused up until this point to being really clear about what our health and safety policies are so that people feel safe coming into the space. But that's very hard also because we've had people tell us that they won't come into the space unless masks are required. And we've had people tell us that if masks are required, they won't come into the space. So, we sort of took the strategy of saying that masks are required in all of our common areas. And then once you get into private spaces, they're recommended, but you can make your own decision. Just trying to communicate with our members about our cleaning policies. And luckily we have lots of windows we can open. We have a big patio. But like I said, people aren't coming. So we're doing individual phone calls and individual emails with members to try to better understand if they're not coming because of childcare or if they're not coming because they're scared of the virus. Is there anything we can do that would help alleviate some of their concerns? And then launching a marketing campaign around kind of our safe haven and trying to provide a place that is both physically and mentally as safe as possible for people to come and start to get back to some sense of normalcy. But it's very hard.
Okay, and so for me, I have as far as marketing, so one of the things that was going to happen last month, April, we're going to open our second location, and of course that didn't happen. So the idea came up with an idea that, you know what, why, without being tone deaf, that's a good point, Carrie, without being tone deaf, it was a hard decision, but I said, let's do it. So I decided we're going to do a virtual grand opening, but the word grand is not really emphasized, but a virtual opening of our space. However, what I'm doing is that every day is reaching out to the community and doing something different. We started off like on Memorial Day. Literally, I was there in the video live, Facebook, and it was a holiday here, so had the singing and the respect for our veterans and things like that, and then just had a conversation. I had two people that joined, but it's recorded, so then my hope is that other people will see it. So in terms of that marketing, I'm trying to reach out to the community in a non-salesy way, but rather that I am reaching out to you, and that we're in this together. And some of the days, actually, it's about really allowing people to talk, just to talk. What have been your frustrations? What are some of the things you've done? And sharing ideas, So one of those, actually, today is a happy hour, but it's all about, allowing people giving space for people to talk safely. The other one has been definitely, through the events I've been doing already. And I'm emphasizing more the virtual aspect of it. And, the other part of really trying to have people come in is just try to share pictures of the actual. That's a good point, Tanya, that you said, of the physical distancing that we set up rather than social. I call it social though, but it's physical distancing within the space. I also set up one thing I didn't say, maybe because we were partially open. I had already actually started setting up like cleaning station. So it's a little package. I put in the sanitizer cleaner, gloves, and then a paper towel for people to clean before and after. So those are things I'm posting that, hey, I want you to feel safe. I want you to, we do clean, but I want you, when you come in, you can clean this space to know exactly that, it's okay that you cleaned it yourself the way you want it to be cleaned. And then afterwards, we also ask you if you can clean it. The other aspect is there's a rule, yes, for wearing gloves in public spaces. Now, I do remember the day before we opened, I had two members, and I was talking about that, what the rules were, the guidance from our state, the governor. And one of them was exactly like that. If you're requiring masks, I am not coming in. I'm telling you right now. So I was like, you know what? It's not us that we're requiring, but I think also we just ask that maybe have your mask. You don't have to have it on. I can understand having the mask the whole day is not easy. Just in case, because here they're working in tandem with actually some of the government agencies, the health department. So we don't know if they'll come and drop in any time or things like that, So that's why we told them, you don't have to have it on, but at least have it with you somewhere. So one of the members, she's okay with it. The other one was like, if you're going to require it, I'm not coming in. He hasn't come in actually this week, which is fine. But we're not requiring it. The other thing also we put up is that, initially we had put that when you come in, please sign and say either your temperature or you're not sick, just so we have it. Now that's my partner, who is also my husband, because his other work, they're very strict that way. But I removed that, and we just have on the door that by coming in, you're certifying that you're actually not sick, you're actually not okay. You are okay, and you haven't come in contact with anyone who is sick, with COVID-19. We also have masks that we put out for sale, actually, in case someone doesn't have. So we put them in, very low cost effective. We just use, the Ziploc bags and put one and two, and then we sell, $3 and $5 for two. So we're just trying, as much as we can to make them feel safe. We did ask, because I think one of the things is to ask what would make them feel safe. We never got a single feedback from anyone, so I don't know. We're just doing what we think will make them feel safe. And sharing pictures and talking about it and encouraging them to come out. So I have to say, I'm not interviewing, but Tanya, I like what you said, how you got together as a community. I don't know if us would do that, but it's a very good way to do that, I think.
Thank you to the three of you for sharing so much. I think everybody got a lot of inspiration out of the talks. Let's see if we have some questions maybe from the audience. Otherwise, I also have one more before we end the panel. Sure. There is a question. So, do you have an inspirational book that have shaped your entrepreneurial journey?
I'll talk for myself. Entrepreneurial journey. Back when I was a bit younger than now, one of the books that inspired me was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And because it talked about that, if you have a business, you keep more of your money, at least in terms of taxes. I don't know wherever you are, what, the tax laws are, but that inspired me way back. So before this, actually, I had gotten into real estate and had rental property and stuff like that. But then I let go of it in the last recession. How many years ago? It's almost 10 to the T. Yeah. So, that inspired me. But I think what inspired me more is, I have to say, is you have to be solving a problem more so than a book. If there's a problem you have, think of it. Are there other people that may have the same problem? I'm thinking many people that start out, that are entrepreneurs, really starting out trying to solve a problem. So that is what I would encourage you. If you have a problem, see what that is, and if other people may also have the same problem, and try to find the solution.
Actually, it's a great inspirational talk for the hackers of that hackathon as well, because we gave them some problems and challenges to solve. So thank you for saying that. I don't know if Tanya or Carrie, you want to share a book. If you don't, that's also okay. That was inspirational.
I remember now that not a book that served as inspiration for the whole business, because I started the crew 8 years ago, and I was a psychologist, and I didn't know nothing about business, and so all my learnings in this field is I got it later. I got a master in economics and management and all that, but after created. But in terms, not the book itself, but in terms of the ideology behind the book, is one that I really like. The ideology is The Company of One, of Paul Jarvis. That states that the scaling process of a company, especially a company of one, does not need to be the same for all, and actually the scaling could even not exist unless you want to be better and better in what you do, and that's more important. That growing. That is in this capitalist way of seeing the growth of the companies. You can grow in value that you deliver to your customers and your clients or community, and not in number of spaces or a number of square meters or a number of chairs and tables that you have in your space. So that would be probably my first thought about books.
Great. Thank you very much. Before I let you go, we normally take selfies and pictures with everyone we meet. But as we are online, we sadly cannot do it physically, although I wish we could. But I'm just going to ask if you can just give me your best smile so we can click that picture and wrap up the panel. So 3, 2, 1, smile.
Yay.
Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you so much. Yes, let's do it like this.
Yes. Yay.
I really loved our conversation. I also added into the program your LinkedIn. So if participants are interested to connect with you to continue the conversation, please do so. Special thank you to you, Carrie, once again for waking up so early. Thank you so much. And I wish you a nice end of the day, and do not hesitate to join the Slack and also interact with all the other participants. Have a nice rest of the day, ladies. See you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Pauline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clap,
Thank
clap,
you,
clap to
Pauline.
you all. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.